Hey, everybody. Welcome to Radiating Love with Roni Lipstein. I'm Roni Lipstein, and I am blessed to be here today with all of you. Just want to make sure of something. Okay, good. All right, then. So, it is Friday, February the 8th. And I am broadcasting live from Toronto, where we are currently experiencing what they are calling one of the worst snowstorms in half a decade, which is 5 years. So it's not really that magnanimous, and yet wonderfully supportive of what we're discussing today, in that it's a huge storm, it's dark, and when you're shoveling, it can feel very bleak with respect to seeing an end in sight. So before we get into what we're actually going to speak about today, I always like to begin with the burning of some sage, which to me is one of the herbs that I resonate with the most as far as a ritualistic ceremonial herb. It sets the stage for me, my olfactory senses, and it is a cleansing herb for me as well as a preparatory one. So I like to start off, I just burn a little bit, and you will likely see the smoke filtering through the screen. And of course, it's burnt in gratitude and love. Gratitude that we are able to meet here today and have the technology and the availability to be able to share in the show, as well as love for everyone who is here, who is not here, for everyone as a whole. And that is the purpose of our show, Radiating Love, on Being Love TV, is to do whatever we can to the best of our abilities to be love and share love and spread love. So on that note, let's get into today's show. So the title for today's show is Pondering Suicide, from Despair to Divinity. So that's a pretty heavy title, I think, for most. And before we actually get into the specifics of what we're going to be discussing, I want to just touch upon a few things that we won't be discussing. So essentially, what those of you who have watched our shows on Being Love TV are familiar with, what we call our disclaimers. So the show is called Pondering Suicide, not Suicide. Suicide itself as a title and a subject is vast. And for anybody to tell you that there is only one perspective from which to look upon suicide, and only one message with respect to suicide, only one lesson to learn from suicide, only one experience of suicide, would be very, very nearsighted and extraordinarily wrong. And definitely, if that's someone you're going to for therapy, I would say run away as fast as you can. So this show is not purporting to be discussing suicide in the full breadth of that which suicide encapsulates. Again, understanding it is a huge, huge subject, experience that cannot be brought into the scope of simply one thing. You can't say that all people who have feelings of suicide are like this. At the same time, this is not a show about providing a means of saving someone from suicide, which is not to say that there won't be things within the show that might not be extremely helpful, and indeed might very well be, but we are not claiming, again, disclaimers, that this show is going to be able to be used to stop someone from suicide, although again I am sure that there will be some resonation with what we will be discussing for anybody who has and might actually assist anyone who is pondering thereupon right now. Additionally, this show is not in any way, shape, or form making any judgments regarding suicide, pro or against. Not that we are saying in that statement that we are supportive of those who are making a choice. We are not judging, period. So this is neither a pro or against suicide show either. Okay? So, I'm sure there's a bunch more disclaimers I can think of. You know, for every individual in our world, there is a different perceptual reality. And for each individual, I'm sure there is a, but what about thought that comes to mind? And so to all of you whose but thoughts I have not thought of to address, I apologize and hope that the experience of the show itself will elucidate that which we will be discussing here, and that which we will be discussing here will be something that you find to be useful in providing some assistance to give you clarity and hopefully to instigate further pondering in your own journey of ever-evolving consciousness. Which brings us much closer to what today's subject is actually about. Yes, it took us 4 minutes to go through what it's not about to get to what it is. Excuse me as I'm sipping my soup. All right, so what is the show about today? So we're talking about pondering suicide, contemplating suicide, getting to a point, being in a point of contemplating suicide. And again, there are many perspectives from which somebody may be contemplating suicide. So actually, to add on to our disclaimers, we aren't talking here about the contemplation of suicide from a frantic perspective. You know, some people who are just like they're we're not talking about suicide from a psychotic perspective where somebody is trying to hurt somebody else by hurting themselves. We're talking about the contemplation from a very calm and relaxed perspective. So one where you're actually able to have these feelings, but have them from more of a detached, if you will, objective perspective, and yet still be having the feelings enough to be able to be pondering upon the potential of suicide and what that means. And you might be asking, why suicide? And there's a reason why I chose such a huge subject matter, is because of the statement that it makes. I could have said simply from despair to divinity, but I wanted to ensure that the despair to which I am talking about, that we are discussing here today, is conveyed to the depths to which we are going to be looking. We're not talking about despair, oh, I broke my nail, although for some people that's despair enough to want to kill themselves. we're talking about the kind of despair where someone is lost sight of any meaning or purpose for living itself, for life itself. We're talking about the kind of despair, and again, no judgment, because it's true. For somebody, breaking a nail, and I know that to a lot of people this might sound completely ludicrous and asinine, and I'm talking mumbo jumbo here, but for somebody out there, breaking a nail could be all that is required, or could be that straw that breaks the camel's back that causes them to fall into this vortex of bleakness, that they are questioning the worthiness of life in and of itself. So again, no judgments, but something that I think maybe more of a majority of us can relate to would be, for example, someone who has lost a young child, a parent who has lost a young child. It is often said that when someone goes through an experience of such tragic loss, of such enormous pain, that they can go one way or the other. And one way is that they completely fall apart, they lose it, they break into a million pieces, their psyche is broken, they're lost psychologically, they not to be using traditional terms, go nuts. Or the reverse, and they pull all of their stuff together and they just soar. And sometimes in life, we seem to be flailing around, not really having a clear direction. And it's not until something that is so magnanimous as to push us so far to the edge of our reality, such as that which is pondering suicide, hence why I chose suicide, are we put to the point of making a decision between fear or love at the point of purity, where we're looking at life and death. Is there any meaning and purpose to living at all, and finding that meaning? And again, the reason that we're going to the depths that we're going to is, a lot of us question, what's the point? And I'm not feeling purposeful and worthy. But I'm not talking about, and I should go for walks more often and stop and smell the roses, and life is a wondrous joy, or life is just horrible and I don't see the point. I'm talking really where you are at the point that it's one or the other. And suicide seems to me, both from my past experiences, recent experiences, in my training and education, in my practice with my angel partners, the people, clients that I journey with in the life coaching and enlightenment guidance that I provide, and in my own personal experiences, in my own life and the lives of those in my personal life, I have found that suicide and contemplating it speaks to all of these things in the most pure of manner, and hence why the title of the show is that which it is. I want to get us there right away. So and where is there that I want to get us? Like, okay, we get the point, let's move on now. All right, so by the way, on the screen just now, it changed. You might see it says Souls Talking Brain on Facebook. This is where you can find our other show that we do here on Being Love TV, Souls Talking Brain. And I'll put up the URL for the show itself. We are going to be premiering our 2013 season in the next few weeks. and we are so excited. So if you go to Facebook and join our page, you will be kept abreast of exactly when we'll be airing our premiere show for 213 of Soul's Talking Brain, which again is our other show here on Being Love TV, and it airs in the Wednesday of the weeks that we're not airing. We air every second Friday, and Soul's Talking Brain airs every second Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. So you definitely want to go here, sign up, and this way you can be kept abreast of our shows, which are going to be we have such a wonderful season in store for you all this year on Soul's Talking Brain. All right, so back to suicide. Yes. So I'm sure by now, most, if not many, if not some, of you are familiar with the term shift in consciousness. And if not, then definitely the term consciousness, as well as commentaries that have been made regarding 2012. And for those of you who aren't, I'm about to give you a little insight, so don't worry. So, 2012 was very popular as far as a year goes, because it has been touted as a time of renewal, regeneration, shifting. And by many ancient civilizations, the most popular that we know of is the Mayans, or that we've been hearing of is the Mayans, where they were speaking about how their calendar was ending and a new one was beginning. It wasn't the end of the world, as we all know. We're here in 2013. It was the end of a cycle of their current Mayan calendar, and now we begin the new one. It was also the end of the grand year cycle, which is a cycle of approximately 25.6 thousand years. And essentially that's based upon the precession of the equinox. It takes approximately 25.6 thousand years to journey for the Earth, to journey through each of the astrological signs. And by the time we journey through all of them again, that would be considered a grand cycle, or an era, as some people know it. We have the golden age, and also, so a cycle, an era, an age. Whatever floats your boat, honey. You can put whatever word you want there. The point is that all of these major calendars, or modes of calculating or keeping time, were coming to a conclusion and to a new beginning in 2012. And in every new era, age, period, you have certain major examples of the evolution that was going on throughout that time period. You had the medieval period, for example. You had the technological period with advances in the industrial age, with advances in technology, for example. We're now in the Aquarian age, coming into the, I think it's the Iron Age, in accordance to the Indian time calendar. And essentially what the evolution, or the glaring example of evolution of this time period that we are in, is one of consciousness. For an example, to give you, we had the industrial age with technology. We had the prehistoric age, where it was more physical in our evolution, where we were going from more of a mammalian, the ape physique, to the more human physique. Well, now our evolution is more consciousness, which is not necessarily up here. It's kind of, but we'll just consciousness. So that's the evolution period that we're in right now. It's one of consciousness, not technology, not physical physiology, although all are affected. But the biggest shift that we are experiencing, the evolution of our species, our experience of life, is one of consciousness. So how does this relate to pondering suicide? I know it's so heavy a subject matter. But, as we shall come to see, very much akin to our shifting evolution that we're going through right now. So, a shift in consciousness, for those who are not aware, and I'm sure that most of you are, but again, for those who are not, it's a shift in perception, essentially. It's a shift in how we are accustomed to thinking. It's a shift in how we are accustomed to perceiving the world around us, to how we are acclimatized, conditioned, trained, comfortable with feeling about the world around us, experiences that we're having, interactions taking place, life in general. Consciousness relates to how we interrelate both with ourselves and everything outside of ourselves, whether it be people, places, things, other species like animals. For those who have had, believe in, or otherwise feel aliens as well, but anything outside, whether you believe in it or you don't believe in it. For those who don't believe in aliens, it's fine, forget about it. For those who do, yes, we're talking about them too. Talking about how we relate to everything, including ourselves. So when you think about thinking, your beliefs, your faith, your interpretations, the definitions and the meanings that you give to life, to yourself, if you just take a moment to consider just how magnanimous this shift in our evolution is, you will understand why and how pondering suicide relates. Our very experience of life itself is completely and utterly dependent on how we think about life. So, at the beginning I was saying, you have somebody who might contemplate suicide because they've lost a young child, and then you have somebody who might contemplate suicide because they broke their nail. No judgments here. But who's to say which one is more justified than the other? Each person, from the one who's lost a child to the one who's broken a nail, is feeling what they're feeling. Each one is feeling the despair to such an extent that they are questioning whether or not it is worth it for them to continue to experience life itself. They are pondering suicide because of their thoughts, because of their feelings, because of the perceptual reality from which they are coming from, because of the consciousness through which they are experiencing life. I want you to just take a minute and think about that. Because our shift that is going on right now is an unseen shift. So it's kind of difficult for most of us because we've been trained to focus on what we can see. It's really easy to see, before we used to get around on horses, and then all of a sudden we were getting around in cars that moved You could see it. It was a palpable shift that you can touch. You can experience physically. It was easy to acknowledge the magnitude of the shift. Going from an ape into a human, it's easy to see the magnitude of the shift. How we suddenly have these new physical abilities that we didn't anymore. We didn't before. The same way with technology. We used to only have the radio. Before that, we didn't even have the radio. We had the town crier. Then we had the TV. And we would have to go up to the TV to switch the dials, and all of a sudden it was all electronic. Now you don't even need a TV. And forget about going up to the dials. You have it on your phone that you can carry around with you. You can go out of your house anywhere and watch TV. I mean, oh my gosh. Very obvious, these shifts in our evolution thus far. Not obvious while they were in the process, granted, not until we were able to see them, but we were able to see them because they physically were there. The shift that we're going through right now, not so obvious. It will be very obvious eventually, and physically will be seen as well, as the abilities that we have will be physically manifest in our physical lives, things that we'll be able to do. But until then, and for the most part, the shift that we're going through right now is an unseen shift. It's on a very subtle level of our quintessential, foundational essence of being. And I'm going to try and make that also a little easier, because when we're talking about the unseen, the unknown, the abstract, it's more difficult to grasp it intellectually, because we've been so conditioned to put our faith into what we can see, into the concrete. So it could be a little bit more difficult to wrap our hands or heads around it. So when I speak to our quintessential foundation, I want you to think about your physical body. I want to bring it back to what we can physically see. Now, you see my physical body here. Let's look at my hand. Beyond my skin, underneath my skin, there are muscles and bones and blood and arteries and veins that you can't see. But if we pulled it back, you could see it with your naked eye. Each one of those, the bones, the muscles, the arteries, the veins, have cells that you couldn't see with your naked eye. But with a microscope, you could see them. Microscopic cells. So we pull back my skin, we're getting to a more foundational level, right? Because my skin over nothing, there's no hand. I need my bones, right? We need the bones to make the hand, the muscle to use the hand, the arteries and veins to ensure the blood is going through my hand so that my hand is alive and operational. And then on a deeper level, a more quintessential essential level is the cells that allow for those things to be. Each bone is made up of molecules, cells. So those we can see with a microscope. And then you go further into the cells and there's neutrons and protons. And again, deeper and deeper and deeper into our more foundational, quintessential level, the building blocks, if you will. Well, our consciousness is the building block for all of life, right? Because our cells, if you will, we can say operate on a level of consciousness to know that, I'm a bone cell and I'm going to, make the necessary pattern for the bone that is going to create this finger and is going to be able to bend, and that we can call the programming of the cells, if you will, the consciousness of the cells. So the consciousness, if you will, is at a level of quintessential essence to our very existence. And it is on this level that we are shifting right now. a level that is unseen and yet is the actual building blocks of our life itself. It's a huge thing to go from a thought in which you are thinking, my gosh, my nail is broken, I'm going to kill myself, or my gosh, I lost my child, I'm going to kill myself, to my gosh, my nail broke, what an opportunity for me to embrace patience and love and trust and be an example for my friends and family of divinity. It's a pretty big shift to go from the feelings of despair at losing a child and questioning what the point of living is. Why experience life when there is such horrific pain and suffering, to being grateful for having had whatever physical experience one has had with their child. And beyond that, to then take this experience of losing one's child as a means of assisting others, seeing it as some kind of a divine message for one's purpose in life, to be a beacon of light for others who have lost their children. It's a complete and utter 180-degree shift from despair to divinity. And that is exactly what happens. That is exactly what happens when someone is pondering suicide. When they are standing on the precipice of despair, within a vortex of their utter and complete bleakness. And I use the word bleakness, by the way, as opposed to darkness, and I will get to that in a moment. When someone is in this place of complete and utter bleakness, and to be able to find the light, to find some purpose, some meaning, some divinity. And it is the shift in consciousness that we are going through right now. For some, it is not quite as drastic of a difference. But in truth, for all of us, there are aspects of how we think, of how we feel, of how we exist in this world that are so drastic in the change that this shift in consciousness is bringing, as that from the despair to divinity as one contemplating suicide. I'm going to leave you on that for a moment, and we will come back and discuss in greater detail right after this. Share the love, share the love. So, below me, I think below where my hand is right now, actually, there should be a little share button, I'm hoping, in which you can share this show with everyone that you know through any of the social networks that you are associated with. And, of course, it is our humbled honor, and we are most deeply grateful to you for sharing our show, as well as any of our Being Love TV shows, whether they be the Radiating Love shows or the Soul's Talking Brain shows. And we thank you for so doing. again, the purpose of our shows is to elucidate pondering, contemplation, and truth in the hopes of assisting, uplifting, empowering, and enlightening as many of our brothers and sisters as is humanly possible. Out of fear consciousness and into love consciousness, out of self-loathing and into self-loving, out of separation and into unity. For it is our humbled belief and opinion that in so doing shall we achieve the world, the life experience that we all desire to be, that we are all worthy and deserving of having, which is one of unity and love, one of cooperation, collaboration, co-creation, as opposed to competition and destruction. So, thank you so much for sharing, and thank you so much for being here today. So before our break, again, our show today is Pondering Suicide from Despair to Divinity, which is, to me, a very, if you will, extreme, obvious statement of the shifting in consciousness that we are currently going through right now in our evolution. Before, when I was talking about someone who is at a point where they are pondering suicide, and they find themselves in this vortex of complete bleakness. I said that I don't use the word, or I'm trying to train myself not to use the word darkness as opposed to bleakness. And I just wanted to explain quickly. Darkness, akin to ego for me, is a term that we have associated negatively, when in fact there is so much beauty in darkness. There is mystery and allure and calm and patience and relaxation in darkness. And so I choose to use the word bleakness because I think that's really what people are referring to when they say darkness. You know, there is no light without the dark, and I like to think that we can find the love in everything. So, hence why I choose not to refer to our bleakness as darkness as often as I can remember to so do. So, I just wanted to share that little something with y'all. So going back to what we were discussing, being in this place of despair that one can most readily, I believe, associate with thoughts of suicide. Questioning life itself. The big question, what is the point of living when there is so much tragedy? What is the meaning of life? And coming to understand, again, bringing us back to where we are right now, which is going through a shift in consciousness, how much our thoughts shape our life experience, and realizing that these questions, what is the meaning of life? What is the purpose of life? Why bother going on to continuously have to deal with this grossness? Because, I mean, let's face it, there's a lot of grossness out there. And if you want to, and again, somebody who is in a mindset of contemplating suicide is seeing the grossness. Trust me. Whether that grossness, again, is someone who sees nothing past breaking a nail but grossness and can't handle it, or someone who's lost a child and can't see anything past that. That's where they're at. And to be questioning the purpose and the meaning. And again, coming back now, where we're at, which is in a place of contemplation and more balanced harmony, to be able to objectively be asking these questions and realizing the magnitude of the effect of our consciousness on our life experience, on life itself, and recognizing, realizing that it is our thoughts that determine the answers to these questions. What is the meaning of life? What do you think it is? What is the purpose of living? What do you feel it is? Why bother going on? Why do you think? Because at the end of the day, the person who says life is not worth living, I can't grow my nails, can just as easily say life is so worth living so that I can show people the meaning of life even though I can't grow my nails. It's a thought that we choose. It's us who puts the meaning, who determines if something is so horrible, so unbearable, that we can't take it anymore, or so inspiring, so moving, that we must share it with all the world because of the meaningfulness in it. And it's just one slight shift. You know, you're walking, there's a song by The Box, and it's called Say to Me, I Think, and I think, can't remember, but there's a point in it where the chorus is walking, walking, tight rope of insanity. We're walking. It's a tight rope. And we can go this way, or we can go this way. It's such a slight shift in consciousness from despair, from the depths of despair and bleakness, to the heights, the magnificent heights of divinity. So completely estranged does it seem are these two thoughts from one another, and yet such a slight shift, in fact. Such a subtle little difference are they from one another. And oftentimes, it is when we are pushed to the edge of our consciousness, when we find ourselves feeling like our face is pushed up to that place of complete and utter desolation, that we find the light of divinity. Just as we feel that we are going to fall over, in that very moment do we rise up. You hear often somebody going through a tragedy, experiencing a horrible loss, being diagnosed with some kind of an illness, and suddenly they find God. This is the same kind of concept. Someone is pushed so far And the only thing they have left that they can grasp onto is their faith, their belief, their trust in that which is not seen. This is the shift in consciousness that is occurring right here and right now, and that we have heard so much about for the last year, definitely, for many, many years. Well, for some, for many, many years, but it's been in discussion for many years. But most people have become more aware of it in the last year. And it is a miraculous shift from fear to love, from despair to divinity. And it begins with putting our faith, our trust in that which is not seen, but is our quintessential essence, ourselves, our thoughts, our feelings, the manner by which we choose to perceive, receive, and respond to life. It is trusting in the quintessential essence of our beingness, energy, the power of our own quintessential essence, our thoughts and our feelings. To make manifest the life that it is that we are wanting to live. Because it is at this point, this level of perception, of thought, of feeling, that we experience our lives. That our lives are what we say they are. And so if we want to have the life of our dreams, it is within this unseen, subtle level of our existence that we must begin. And again, for many, to most easily get what I'm talking about here, did we call today's show Pondering Suicide, from Despair to Divinity. Living a life in which you are miserable, or living a life in which you are blissful. Living a life in which you are focusing on everything you don't have, or living a life in which you are focusing on everything that you do. Living a life in which negative things that happen are tests, are punishment, are bad karma. Or living a life in which things happen that you choose to decide and determine as being bad or good, and you make the choice to see them as opportunities, each opportunity in some way, shape, or form to be love, to be more loving in this way, to be more expressive of love in that way, to be more understanding of love in this way, to be more giving to this person, to be healing of this aspect of yourself that you haven't been loving before. It's a choice that we have, the same that suicide is a choice that we have. Live or don't live. See the purpose or don't see the purpose. Give meaning or take it away. The power of that choice, and therefore the power to create your very life and the experience of your life, does not lie with anybody else, within anything else, but you. It lies within each and every one of us individually to make that determination for ourselves. This is what you call our free will. Some can choose to say that it is the biggest curse. Some can choose to say that it is the greatest gift. It is this shifting in consciousness out of fear and negativity and into love and positivity that we are currently traversing and manifesting. From despair to divinity. It is the choice that we each have. We have it not just in this evolutionary period, but always, in every moment of every moment of every moment. And if 2 seconds ago you chose to see a situation as horrific, and you even responded in ways that were horrific, you can make the choice 2 seconds later to say, you know what, maybe it's not so horrific. Maybe I better apologize. Maybe I better take some steps necessary to rectify the situation in a different direction. Every now we have that choice. Every now we can choose divinity. We can choose despair. Don't get me wrong. You have the choice, honey. Free will. You got the choice, babies. But who wouldn't want a life of love and happiness and bliss? It is our authentic state. Homeostasis, which is our optimal state of health, is achieved with greater ease when we are in a position, a consciousness of bliss, happiness, calm, relaxation. Dis-ease, as in other words, disease, illness, are more apt to occur when we are in a state of despair, when we are stressed and anxious. It's how we are naturally. It's how we operate. It's how we're made. Our bodies respond. They show us who we are, how best we exist, and therefore to do all that we can to align ourselves with divinity as opposed to despair is to align with our authenticity as opposed to illusion, as opposed to someone else's misguided perception. It's a choice. We all have it. This way, that way. Love, divinity. Whatever you can do to shift, the small little shift to love. For those who are seeking assistance in making this shift, who are feeling weighted down by the heaviness of your despair, I am available for one-on-one journeys, for healing, holistic life coaching, which encompasses everything from fitness to nutrition to consciousness, how you're thinking, how you're feeling, how you're choosing to perceive, receive, and respond to life. You can get more information about these one-on-one journeys with me by writing to Being Love at the number 1. That's the number 1 that you see over there. Number 1 is all.com. I am available for journeys internationally, so if you are not in Toronto, no worries. as long as you have a computer, which if you're watching this, you do, and the internet, which again, if you're watching this, then you do. We can journey together. We can journey using Skype or email. We can journey by phone. And for those who are in Toronto, we can journey in person, either in the Embrace of Sanctuary Soul Sanctuary, our Wisdom and Wellness Community Center here in Toronto, or I am happy to come to your home or your office, so long as you're in the area. So yes, if you are seeking more personal, individual assistance, if you would like to go through your own choices of perception and where your consciousness is at in your evolutionary stage, get a hold of me here and we can do that together. And it is my humbled honor to be able to assist you on your journey to self-love. Know that anything that we do to assist ourselves, to love ourselves, is a gift to everybody else. Because more vibrations of love create more love for everyone else. Because when we're being loved, we're being loving to someone else as opposed to being mean to them. We're affecting them positively. They affect their people positively because of us. And it's an exponential effect of positivity, which is what this is all about, right? Creating an exponential effect of love for the benefit of all. So thank you so much for joining me here today on Being Love TV's Radiating Love show. I send forth blessings that you have found today's show to be of assistance to you, uplifting, empowering, and enlightening. I hope that you share the show. I hope that you comment underneath the show and share your experience of it, your insights, your own personal experiences with relation to our subject of the day. And I look forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks on Radiating Love on Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern right here on Being Love TV. In Lakesh Alakin, I am another you, you are another me, we are one. Namaste. Blessedly be, angels.